and welcome to the next edition of the HP Discover podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing sponsored discussion on IT innovation and how it's making an impact on people's lives. Once again, we're focusing on how companies are adapting to the new style of IT to improve IT performance and deliver better user experiences as well as better business results. This time, we're coming to you directly from the HP Discover 2014 conference in Las Vegas. We're here the week of June 9 to learn directly from IT and business leaders alike how big data, cloud, and converged infrastructure implementations are supporting their goals. Our next innovation case study interview highlights how RealTime Medicare Data analyzes huge volumes of Medicare data and provides analysis to their many customers on the caregiver side of the healthcare sector. Here to explain how they manage such large data requirements for quality, speed, and volume, we're joined by Scott Hannon, the CIO of RealTime Medicare Data, and he's based in Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
First off, tell us a bit about your organization and what are some of the major requirements you have from an IT perspective.
Well, currently, RealTime Medicare Data has full census Medicare, which includes Part A and Part B, and we do analysis on this data. We provide reports which are web-based in a web-based tool to our customers who are typically acute care organizations such as hospitals. We also do have a product that provides analysis that is specific to physicians and their billing practices.
And of course, Medicare is a very large U.S. government program to provide health insurance to the elderly and other qualifying individuals.
Yes, that's true.
So what sorts of data requirements have you had? Is this a volume, a velocity, a variety type of a problem, all the above?
Well, it's been mostly a volume problem because we're actually a very small company. We are 10. There's only 10 of us there, and there are only 3 of us in the IT department. But when it began, it was just me as the IT department back when I started in 2007. What I found was at that time we had one state, which is Alabama, and then we began to grow. So we grew to 7 states, which is kind of the South region, which is Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi. We found that Microsoft SQL Server was not really going to handle the type of queries that we did with the volume of data. Now, to give you an example of how large our data is, currently we have 18 states. We're loading about a terabyte of data per year, which is about 630 million claims, and our database currently houses about 3.7 billion claims.
Yes, that is some serious volume of data. And from the analytics side, what sort of reporting do you do on that data, and who gets it, and what are some of their requirements in terms of how they like to get some strategic benefit from this analysis?
Well, currently, most of our customers are general acute care hospitals. We do have it's a web-based tool that we provide that has reports in it. We provide reports that start at the physician level. We have reports that start at the provider level. We have reports that you can look at by state. And the other great thing about our product is that typically providers have data on themselves and they can do reports on themselves, but they can't really compare themselves to the providers in their market or state or region. So what this does, it allows them to look not only at themselves, but to compare themselves to those other places like their market and the region and the state.
And I should think that's hugely important, given that Medicare is a very large portion of funding for many of these organizations in terms of their revenue. Knowing what the market does, how they compare to it, is essential.
Yes, typically a hospital, their revenue is dependent about 40 to 45% on Medicare. The other thing that we found is that most physicians don't change their practice, how they practice medicine based on if it's a Medicare patient or if it's a Blue Cross patient or whomever, their private insurance is. So the insights that they gain by looking at our reports are pretty much, 90 to 95% of how their business is going to be, run.
Definitely mission critical data then. All right, so you started in a relational database using standard off the shelf product. You grew rapidly, your volume issues grew. So tell us a little bit about what the problems were and requirements you had that led you to seek an alternative.
Well, there was a couple of problems. One, obviously the volume. What we found was that we have had to increase increase the indexes exponentially, because we're talking about 95% reads here on the database. And like I said, the Microsoft SQL Server really was not able to handle that volume as we expanded. So the first thing that we were going to try was to move to an analysis services backend. I guess it's kind of fate that project we got an outside party to help us with, and because we would need to redesign our front end completely to be able to query analysis services, and it just so happened that project failed, basically it was taking way too long to implement, and so I started looking at other alternatives out there, and I guess just by pure research, I happened to find Vertica, which when I was reading about it, I thought, I'm not sure how this is impossible. It didn't even seem possible to be able to do this with this amount of data. So we got a trial of it, and I started using it, and it was very, it was impressive that it actually could do what it said it could do.
Cool. Now, as I understand it, Vertica has the column store architecture. Was that something understood? What is it about the difference of the Vertica approach to data, one that perhaps caught your attention at first, and how has that worked out for you?
Well, I think to me the biggest advantages were the fact that it uses the standard query, SQL query language, so it wouldn't have to learn the MDX, which is, required with the analysis services. But I think, and I don't understand the complete technical details about columnar storage, but I understand that it's much faster in that it doesn't have to look at every single row by row, and it can build the actual data set much faster, which gives you much better performance on the front end.
Right. And what sort of performance have you had?
Typically, we have seen about a tenfold decrease in actual query performance. So when we would run reports that would take about 20 minutes, now they take roughly 2 minutes. So we're very happy about that.
And how long has it been since you've implemented Vertica, and what is some of the supporting infrastructure that you've relied on?
Well, we actually implemented Vertica back in 2010, and what we ended up doing was actually still utilizing the Microsoft SQL Server as a querying agent, because it was much easier to continue to interface the SQL reporting services, which is what our web-based product uses, and then the stored procedure functionality that was in there, and also the open query feature. So we would just pull the data directly from Vertica, and then send it through Microsoft SQL Server to the reporting services engine.
Great. I've heard from many organizations that not only has this been a speed issue and a volume issue, but there's been an ability to bring new tools to the process. Have you changed any of the tooling that you've used for analysis? How have you gone about creating your custom reports?
Well, we really haven't changed the reports themselves. It's just the fact that I know when I design a query to pull a specific set of data that I don't have to worry that it's going to take me 20 minutes, to get some data back. Now, I'm not saying that Vertica, every query is, 30 seconds, but the majority of the queries that I do use, they don't take that long to bring data back. I mean, it's a much improved over the previous solution that we were using.
Any other quality issues and other than just raw speeds and feeds issues that you've encountered? What are some of the paybacks you've gotten as a result of this architecture?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I didn't have a lot of experience with Unix or Linux on the back end, and I was a little bit rusty on what little experience I did have. But I will tell people that, don't be afraid of Linux, because Vertica runs on Linux, and it's easy most of the time. I don't even have to mess with it. So now that that's out of the way, I think some of the biggest advantages of Vertica is the fact that you can expand to multiple nodes to handle the load if you've got multiple, larger client base. It's very simple. You basically just install the commodity hardware, put whatever flavor of Unix or Linux that you prefer as long as it's compatible, and then the installation does all the rest for you as long as you tell it you're doing multiple nodes. The other thing is the fact that you have multiple nodes allows for fault tolerance. So that was something that we really didn't have with our previous solution. Now we have fault tolerance and load balancing.
Great. Any lessons learned that you could share as you made this transition from a SQL database to a Vertica columnar store database? You even moved a platform from Windows to Linux. What might you tell others who are pursuing a shift in their data strategy because perhaps they're hitting some walls?
Well, like I said before, don't be afraid of Linux. I mean, if you're a Microsoft or a Mac shop, just don't be afraid to jump in. Go get the free community edition or talk to a salesperson there and try it out. You won't be disappointed. And since the time that we started using it, they've made multiple improvements to the product. The other thing that I learned was with the open query, there are specific ways that you have to write the stored procedures, and I like to call it single quote hell, because basically when you write open query and you have to quote something, there's a lot of other additional single quotes that you have to put in there. I learned that there was a second way of doing it that lessened that impact.
Okay. We're here at HP Discover. What are you interested in learning more in terms of roadmap or future, and maybe how does that align with what your next steps are in your journey to a big data capability?
Well, I'm definitely interested in seeing all the other capabilities that Vertica has, and seeing how other people are using it in their industry and for their customers.
Mm-hmm. In terms of your deployment, are you strictly on premises for the foreseeable future? Do you have any interest in pursuing hybrid or cloud-based deployments for any of your data services?
We actually use a private cloud, which is hosted at TechLinks in Birmingham. We've been that way ever since we started, and that seems to work well for us because we basically just rent a rack space and provide our own equipment, and they have the battery backup, power backup, generators, and cooling.
Mm-hmm. How about backup and recovery? How are those issues managed for you?
Well, actually, we have multiple copies of it on multiple server systems, and we also do cloud backup.
I see. So you've got a separate location in the cloud that you use should something unfortunate happen.
Right. Correct.
So a good insurance for a Medicare insurance database.
Absolutely.
Okay, super. We'll leave it there. Please join me in thanking our guest. We've been talking about how RealTime Medicare Data is managing a huge volume of data and providing analysis to care providers in 18 states, is it, in the U.S.?
That's correct.
Great. So a big thank you to Scott Hannon, CIO at RealTime Medicare Data in Birmingham, Alabama. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana.
And thanks also to our audience for joining us for this special new style of IT discussion coming to you directly from the HP Discover 2014 conference in Las Vegas. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of HP-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening, and come back next time.